Mary, she said the spotlight is too bright.
I call to order the December 2024 meeting of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the boardroom and via live stream today. I will note that Regent Kenyanya is attending via Zoom and Regent Gully is absent. Let's turn right to our business. We will begin today with the introduction of two new senior leaders, Greg Goldman, our new Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations, and Chris Gotti, our new Vice President for Communications. President Cunningham, would you please join me at the podium to greet our new executives?
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair Mayeron. This morning, I am also delighted to introduce two new extraordinary leaders to the University of Minnesota. First, let me welcome Greg Goldman, who joined the U of M on November 11th as our Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations. Greg, please join me up here at the podium. The fact that Greg started here on November 11th is really hard for me to fathom, given how much he's accomplished in his first few weeks in office here. Greg is a seasoned finance and operations leader who has more than 30 years experience in higher ed. As Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations, Greg is now responsible for the university's $4.5 billion annual operating budget. He oversees a team of more than 2,700 employees, and he manages our fiscal approach across all 5 campuses and other sites, including the University Medical Center, ensuring operational excellence. Greg previously served as the Vice Chancellor and Chief Financial Officer at UCLA. He's also led finance and operations at UC Irvine, USC, and all of whom I think we are poised in football.
Exactly.
Really good at his leadership and expertise on both places as we arrive at campus. And I really look forward to what we can accomplish together. Greg, it's welcome to be here. Please join me in welcoming Greg to the University of Minnesota. Talk handshakes around the horseshoe.
Welcome.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Next, it is my pleasure to introduce Chris Gotti, who joined the university on November 25th as our Vice President for Communications. Chris, please join us here at the podium. Like Greg, Chris has truly hit the ground running. Chris has only been at U of M, are we on like day 11, maybe 12, right? But he has already made a tremendous impact identifying opportunities to further elevate the university's reputation across our state, nation, and world through innovation in communications and marketing strategies. Chris has an incredible experience in marketing and communications executive at large nonprofit organizations with expansive public missions. As Vice President for Communications, Chris leads our marketing and comms team, which are responsible for celebrating the university system's many contributions to society. He's already working with leaders from across our 5 campuses to strengthen the university's communications, marketing, and branding while elevating our reputation as one of America's leading public research universities. To contribute in all the ways Minnesotans expect the university to advance our state, we need incredibly talented, experienced, and committed leaders, and Chris fits that description perfectly. Chris, thank you for joining us. Please join me in welcoming Chris to the University of Minnesota. Shakes around the horseshoe. That's it. Okay.
All right, our next item is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Thank you. Next, we will hear the report of President Cunningham. President Cunningham, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. And I'll say at the outset, this report is a little bit long because we have all been very busy over these first 5 months or so. And as we really get going here, there's quite a bit to report today. So over the past 6 months, the opportunity to engage with so many people across our state, nation, and world has only heightened my excitement and enthusiasm for what's ahead for this great university. Many of them are looking to the University of Minnesota to extend and expand its commitment to ensure the health of all Minnesotans and to our society at large. As an emergency physician and public health researcher and educator who's taken care of patients at the bedside and led university health research, I feel a strong personal connection to the health of our people and the communities in which they live. I'm excited to announce that U of M is preparing to launch a bold new vision for its health enterprise that advances our public service mission to improve the health and well-being of all Minnesotans. Right now, we are at an inflection point, and so our timing here is critical. Minnesota, like so many other states across the country, faces critical shortfalls across almost every healthcare profession. The university and M physicians must evolve in order to continue their strong legacy of providing quality, accessible healthcare for all Minnesotans. To position ourselves for the future and undertake a university-owned and operated health system, U of M must invest in and work with M physicians to undertake some important changes to assume control and responsibility for its critical healthcare mission. To propel us forward in this important space, I will appoint a new interim executive vice president for health who can provide oversight to the university's clinical practice and operations for M physicians, the clinics and surgery center, the medical school, and if a transaction is completed with Fairview Health Services, the University of Minnesota Medical Center. While the university's expertise is exceptionally strong in the academic, clinical, and interdisciplinary approaches needed for success, the interim executive vice president for health will bring expertise that will be essential to owning and operating a successful and financially feasible hospital system. This new structure will help us maintain and enhance the very successful trajectory of our medical school under the brilliance and leadership of Dr. Jacob Toller and M Physicians' expertise under the leadership of Dr. Bevan Yu. Dr. Toller and Yu will continue to work with us on our leadership team and will report and work in partnership with the EVP. This together will unify the medical school operations and clinical practices in this next phase of the university's academic health enterprise. In addition to the new executive vice president for health position, the university is working with M physicians as we aim to develop a new governance structure and implementation plan that can drive greater alignment between the practice and the university, set the course for centralized leadership of the clinical enterprise, create a more integrated approach to providing patient care, together to be implemented with a goal of June 30th, 2025. As it pertains to our partnership with Fairview Health Services, the university continues to engage in comprehensive negotiations, and both parties entered a new phase of discussions this week. The university is committed to this realignment with M physicians as part of our broader commitment to serving the people and communities across our state. It's important for me to clarify that this realignment with our M physicians will proceed along with the EVP position regardless of an outcome of Fairview negotiations. I look forward to providing the Board of Regents and our broader university community with more updates in the next year. Next, I would like to provide some updates about an exciting journey that each and every one of you, I hope, will likely participate in over the next year. As many of you know, our current strategic plan, MPACT 2025, is winding down. And so we're at a critical moment of time where we'll come together as a community and reimagine what a future of U of M should look like. Together, we will develop a clear, actionable plan that aligns with our mission, vision, and values. We will engage our faculty, staff, students, alumni, community members to ensure broad input and support, and we will identify and prioritize key strategic initiatives that will drive system-wide growth and success over the next several years. I will share more detailed information regarding that system-wide strategic planning process later in today's meeting. But I wanted to take this opportunity to once again reiterate the importance of us working together to dream for a vision of the future of U of M. I had an opportunity just now to earlier to formally introduce Executive Vice President Greg Goldman and Vice President Chris Gotti. I would now like to recognize Provost Rachel Croson, who recently announced her decision to step down as Executive Vice President and Provost at the end of the academic year. As Chief Academic Officer, Rachel has exemplified steady leadership and unwavering perseverance throughout her tenure, not only in navigating the university through very challenging times, but incredibly accelerating the U of M to new heights. Rachel joined the university during a very difficult period in March of 2020 as colleges across the country were closing campuses and figuring out how to transition to virtual learning. She played an essential and vital role in developing and implementing new policies and procedures so that the university could safely and effectively navigate the uncertainty of the pandemic and eventually resume on-campus operations. Rachel was also critical in driving the implementation of our successful MPACT 2025 plan. She has the unique ability to identify strong leaders, which is reflected in the 13 academic deans and 6 vice provosts she hired during her tenure. I am eternally grateful to Rachel for her guidance, her support, her collegiality, all of which have benefited me tremendously during the early parts of my presidency. I'm confident Rachel will continue to thrive as a national leader in higher education, and I look forward to whatever great opportunity comes next for her. We will have many more months to work with Rachel and to celebrate her, and we will host events to celebrate her success. But for now, please join me in congratulating Rachel for her extraordinary leadership and service to the university. As we continue to move forward as a university system, I will begin work immediately to form a search committee and enlist a search firm to help us recruit a broad-based, diverse candidate pool. Our goal will be to identify a new executive vice president and provost by this following summer, before the next academic year. Provost Croson and I will continue to work on her exact transition time to ensure a smooth transition for the university, for which I am grateful. I will provide updates on this critical search and solicit broad input from the university community as we move forward. In recent weeks, U of M has generated a positive buzz far beyond our campus walls, due in large part to our powerful research enterprise. For example, according to the Times Higher Education, U of M now ranks #1 in interdisciplinary science among all U.S. public research universities, #1 in interdisciplinary science. This is very exciting because we know the greatest challenges impacting our people and our communities can only be solved by working across traditional academic silos. And this is where the University of Minnesota truly excels. The National Science Foundation also just released its annual Higher Ed Research and Education Development Survey, and I'm thrilled to announce that U of M continues to rank #12 in research volume among all U.S. public research universities. With $1.3 billion in annual research activity, our faculty, staff, and students are uniquely positioned to generate new knowledge, create innovative technologies, and solve critical problems plaguing our communities. Congratulations to Vice President Shashank Priya and his colleagues at the Research and Innovation Office for their work in catalyzing, supporting, safeguarding research and creative practice across our 5 campuses. And most importantly, thank you to all of the faculty and staff and students that have worked alongside that enterprise to make it what it is today. To help U of M maintain its positive momentum and to advance important system-wide initiatives, I am charging 3 new task forces. This is why this report is long today. The first one focuses on artificial intelligence, which is no longer a distant concept. It is a reality that permeates nearly every aspect of our lives. And so in coordination with Provost Croson, Vice President Priya, and other senior leaders, I will be charging an advisory task force to recommend how U of M approaches the evaluation, use, and development of emergent AI tools and services. The task force will begin meeting next month with the intent to recommend best practices, training, and policy needs by next fall. Our ultimate goal here is to help equip students, faculty, and staff with the knowledge and skills necessary to harness the power of AI responsibly and effectively and continue to position us as leaders in AI as we are. The second task force will focus on our St. Paul campus, which for more than a century has served both a rich educational environment and an agricultural experiment station housing research fields, greenhouses, and laboratories. We have a unique opportunity to chart its future course, and so I have charged a task force to propose a comprehensive strategy for our St. Paul campus. St. Paul has a historic and natural features, and so this task force will consider opportunities for new collaborations, social hubs, catalyst projects that can effectively position the campus as a destination for innovation and also support our cohort of students who find this to be a really special and important place for them to have an option of their work and their study here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. The information we glean from this task force will help us immensely as we embark on a broader strategic planning efforts over the next year. Together, we will shape a bold new vision that honors the history of our St. Paul campus while positioning it for success for generations to come. The third task force will focus on systemness, which aligns nicely with one of the Regents' priorities for this year. I arrived in the Twin Cities at a time when there is a renewed interest in how U of M can be greater than the sum of its parts. And so I've charged a task force to figure out ways in which we can operate more effectively as a system of campuses. How can we break down barriers, highlight our unique strengths so that every student can find the right U of M for them? At the end of the day, they get one U of M degree. The task force began meeting last month, and just yesterday they held an in-person working retreat for half a day. I'm very excited about the opportunities this task force will identify and how we begin to position our university system for tremendous success for years to come. We will be bringing back an update on that committee at one of the next meetings. Here at U of M, we all appreciate the fact that graduate students play a vital role in supporting and advancing our powerful public mission. I am really just thrilled to announce that this month, the Graduate Labor Union ratified its first collective bargaining agreement with the university. This very significant milestone follows more than a year of dedicated negotiation and represents the interests of 4,500 graduate assistants across our Twin Cities and Duluth campuses. The university and Graduate Labor Union worked together to negotiate a complex agreement that covers wages over 3 years, leaves, medical and dental and tuition benefits, and separate memos of understanding. This 3-year agreement marks a new chapter in our relationship with our graduate assistants, underscoring the university's commitment to recognizing their vital contributions to our academic mission. Our focus will now shift to ensuring the university complies with all terms and conditions in the agreement. Planning is already underway to implement this first contract, which requires plenty of work to effectively update our systems, run the requisite background tests, and develop and communicate the new processes and procedures. Numerous tasks must be completed for a successful implementation across our large decentralized institution, which includes partnering with 34 separate HR teams across the system to engage and educate them on the contract. For example, the Office of Human Resources will need to identify every eligible graduate assistant for a wage change based on if merit pay was awarded by their department for fiscal year of 2025. Subsequently, there needs to be an entry of all wage adjustments into our system. Because of the scale and complexity surrounding this implementation, the university needs a few weeks to be able to do this well and meet its obligations under the contract. We're working diligently to expedite the implementation of this important agreement with plans to bring the contract to the Board of Regents at a special meeting in January. With that, we should have sufficient time over the next 3 weeks to implement all of the contract provisions in alignment with the start of the spring semester. Next, some good news to pass along. For starters, I want to congratulate Regent Ruth Johnson on receiving the highest Mayo Clinic Award for clinicians, the Mayo Clinic Distinguished Clinician Award. So, a round of congratulations. Very well deserved, Regent Johnson. I also want to congratulate Ann Aronson and her colleagues at University Relations for launching our new system-wide marketing campaign, Healthier Here, There, and Everywhere. Through TV and radio ads, websites, and social media messages, this new marketing campaign demonstrates how U of M is building a healthier state and planet by improving human health, as well as the health of our animals, our agriculture, our society, our economy, as well as the health of our students. And I believe our tech folks have that. Yes.
A healthier world is not only possible, we believe it's non-negotiable. and we'll stay driven to make things healthier everywhere. Healthier is happening in Crookston as we perfect equine health with mineral-dense milk. Healthier is happening in Duluth as we harness the energy in waves to sustainably power the future. Healthier is happening in Morris with a new approach to mental health that leads to better outcomes. Healthier is happening in Rochester with a breakthrough artificial intelligence model that detects cancer. And healthier is happening in the Twin Cities as we eradicate food insecurity with superabundant crops. Wherever the University of Minnesota reaches, healthier follows for our state, our nation, and our world. Here, there, and everywhere.
Thanks again to Aaron Aronson and the entire marketing and communications team for that work. There's a whole series of those ads. Some of them go into more detail on each of the sub areas, and there will be many more examples from those themes over the coming months across the university. I'd also like to acknowledge our colleagues at Boynton Health who are making great progress to alleviate food insecurity on campus. I've heard since I got here on the importance of this issue for our students, and I wanted to provide the board with some update. We talked about this in the special meeting yesterday, and we'll talk about this some more in the next student work session at our next board meeting in February or March. But I wanted just to provide an update on all the work that's already been done. When compared to last year, Boynton has more than doubled the amount of food that students can take during each visit to our West Bank food pantry, from 4 pounds to 9 pounds over the past 6 or 12 months. Together, we'll build an environment where no student has to worry about their next meal, and they have expanded their reach for basic needs for students in a number of other ways that I mentioned that we'll talk more about in coming months. So I'd like to wrap up my president's report by welcoming some special guests to McNamara. Senior linebacker Derek LeCaptain, and senior defensive lineman Jalen Logan Redding. A couple weeks ago, our beloved Golden Gopher team reclaimed, thank you, Paul Bunyan's axe by defeating our rivals from Wisconsin in Madison. Not just defeating, I would say crushing, 24-7. Yep. And Jalen, on behalf of the entire University of Minnesota community, congratulations to you and your teammates, Coach Fleck and Athletic Director Coyle. Our student athletes' commitment to excellence, both in the field and the classroom, is completely inspiring. I would now like to invite Derek and Jalen to bring Paul Bunyan's axe around the horseshoe so that our regents can properly congratulate you on this historic victory. And as they make their way up to the horseshoe, Chair Mayron, that concludes my report. All right.
I'm calling a short recess so we can experience the axe. I call this meeting of the Board of Regents back to order. Thank you, President Cunningham, for your report, and thank you for bringing to everyone and all of our athletes for bringing back Paul Bunyan's axe back home to Minnesota. It's a truly exciting capstone to your report, I think, and we're going to enjoy the photos, I'm sure. All right, our next item is the report of the chair. First, I would like to amplify President Cunningham's comments on the timing of the graduate labor union contract. The board has heard from graduate labor union members, and we are eager to take up.
You forgot about the genocide. When are you going to mention it? This blows! Die back! We will not stop! We will not rest! This blows! Die back! We will not stop! We will not rest! This blows! Die back!
At this time, I call for order.
We will not rest! This blows! Die back! We will not stop! We will not rest! This blows!
We will take a recess at this time.
We will not stop! We will not rest!
All right, we will resume the meeting. Let me just take it back in my remarks where I was. And that is I wanted to amplify President Cunningham's comments on the timing of the graduate labor union contract. I want to acknowledge the fact that we have heard from a number of members of the union, and we are eager to take up the proposal on the contract as soon as possible. As President Cunningham shared, the administration needs preparation time to successfully implement the terms of the contract. They are working tirelessly to be able to do that, and then once they are ready to turn the lights on and to implement, then we will I will call a special meeting for the board to act, and we will be able to proceed at that time. As we end the calendar year, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on a few items of this board and the university accomplishments in 2024. To start, we all know the university conducted a very thorough and transparent national search to find our next president while under the interim leadership of Jeff Ettinger. I know I speak for everyone when I convey yet again how thrilled we are to have found Rebecca Cunningham. President Cunningham officially began on July 1, hit the ground running, starting with the board's annual retreat. Over the summer, we set our annual priorities and began discussing the university's next strategic plan, which President Cunningham will share more about later in this meeting. We also created 2 special committees to better highlight and oversee key areas: the Special Committee on Student Affairs and the Special Committee on the University Workforce, both of which began meeting this month at this board meeting. Throughout the fall, the board also began implementing an expanded engagement strategy, which includes tours and events across the system, as well as listening sessions on each campus to hear directly from faculty, staff, and students. I won't say much more about that here, as you will have a chance to hear directly from the regents who participated during our next agenda item. I would also like to highlight the esteemed accomplishments of our 2 colleagues. President Cunningham already took the wind out of my sails with respect to Regent Ruth Johnson, who received the Distinguished Clinician Award, which is the highest award for clinicians at Mayo, at the Mayo Clinic's annual staff meeting on Thursday, November 14. And Regent Tad Johnson received the Association for the Study of Higher Education's Presidential Medal for his work in initiating the process that led to the Truth Recognition and University Tribal Healing Report, the Truth Report, at the association's conference on Friday, November 22. Congratulations, Regent. We are so proud of our colleagues, and with that, that concludes my comments, and we will proceed with the agenda. Item number 5 is the receive and file reports, which includes virtual forum comments and listening session feedback. As I just noted in my report, the board is piloting a series of listening sessions on each campus throughout the academic year. This fall, Regents visited the Crookston, Duluth, Morris campuses, as well as the St. Paul portion of the Twin Cities campus. Personally, I found the session that I attended to be quite valuable and informative. Colleagues, I would like to invite those who are here who participated in listening sessions to share a brief report of the themes that they heard. Why don't we start with Regent Hipsch?
Thank you, Chair Mayor. Joining the Duluth and St. Paul sessions allowed me to hear from faculty, staff, and students on a variety of topics. It was great to see so many of our talented faculty, staff, and students in person. While I mentioned to several folks at each location, I imagine we'll be back to continuing the listening sessions. These sessions provide valuable feedback for the board as we take up our business. Chair Mayor, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Regent Tad Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Mayor. Yes, I was also with Regent Hipsch at the Duluth campus. We were very impressed with a lot of the research being done at the Swenson School, particularly by Dr. Bob Carlson in the area of polynomial research, which I understood when he was explaining it, but I can't explain now. But we did take a subsequent trip, which the chair was on, to 4 rural outreach centers in the 8th District, where they're doing things in the town of Finland, Minnesota, as well as the Hubachek Research Center near Fall Lake, Minnesota, and then Grand Rapids and the Cloquet Forestry Center. And we saw some amazing research being done in all those places. At Morris, Chancellor Erickson put together a whole group of townspeople. And at both of these sessions, we talked to students, faculty, and staff. But what impressed me at Morris, and I was there with James, Regent Farnsworth, was there was a meeting of folks from the town of Morris, a state legislator, a county commissioner, townspeople, farmers. And I don't know if they thought we were there to try to close Morris, but they were making this great defense as to why the community needed the University of Minnesota Morris and all the things it was doing for the community. So anyway, it was a great, both were very good trips, and all 3 of those. So that's my report, Chair Merriwan. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. I was privileged to participate in the Crookston and University of Minnesota Duluth campus sessions. At Crookston, we heard about the importance of the U's outreach efforts and their community partnerships. Of particular note were the number of individuals from the greater Crookston community that came to the University of Minnesota Crookston to share their thoughts about the importance of the university and the community, as well as opportunities for growth. At UMD, we heard about student research, as Regent Johnson suggested, through the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program, UROP. We received feedback from staff on shared resources between the campuses and some of the successes they've been seeing between the University of Minnesota Twin Cities and University of Minnesota Duluth shared staffing positions. And we also received appreciation for the UEA contract approval this last year. Overall, I echo what each of my colleagues have already said, and I'm sure we'll also share in future sessions, that these interactions and the input we receive are really invaluable and really appreciated. It provides us an opportunity to actually dialogue with members of the university community and those who care about the University of Minnesota as a whole. So as we have more in the future and others are able to stop by, including any of the regents who are able to attend those in the future, please do. We look forward to hearing from everyone.
Thank you. Regent Tarabi.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. As my colleagues have mentioned, it was great to hear from a variety of faculty, staff, and students. I attended the St. Paul session where we heard a variety of themes ranging from peak implementation communications to facilities needs, and from food insecurity to the use of artificial intelligence in academia. While there are a multitude of activities taking place on the St. Paul campus, it was interesting to hear a few common themes woven across disciplines and roles. And it's clear that St. Paul is beloved, and people are really excited. And so to hear that there will be a task force formed, I think will really bring attention to that need. Overall, I found the time to be valuable and look forward to joining my colleagues as we continue these sessions throughout the spring semester. Chair Mayron, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I also was able to attend one of the listening sessions at the St. Paul campus, and my thoughts in summary pretty much mirror what Regent Tarabi said. We were visited by students, faculty, and staff. It was kind of a cold, blustery day, and nonetheless, they came out and we were there for 2 hours, and many of them stayed the entire time with their jackets on, even though we were indoors. But the themes that Regent Tarabi mentioned are the same ones I noted. That is, they covered topics about the need for investment in the St. Paul campus. So I think that the task force is going to be very, very welcome by this group. They talked about their love of the campus and its size and why they were there. They talked about themes came up regarding facilities, transportation, parking, food costs, food accessibility. We talked about mental health support and the implementation of PEAK. So we covered a variety of topics, and it was just a terrific opportunity to be able to dialogue and be able to ask questions and hear what was on people's mind. And as our other regents have said, I think all of us will welcome these continued engagements as we embark on them in Rochester, here in Minneapolis, West Bank, et cetera, over the coming year. So thank you for your reports, colleagues. Next, we will consider the consent report. The consent report includes gifts, the report of the All University Honors Committee, the report of the Naming Committee, and the report of the Regents Award Nominating Committee. Before I invite a motion to approve the consent report, you are welcome to ask questions, make comments, or ask for an item to be separated out from the report to be voted on separately. Are there any questions, comments, or requests to separate out an item? Hearing none, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent report? So moved. Is there a second? Second. It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, if there are no questions, comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. All right, moving then to the next item, item 7. This is a report from the various Senate consultative committees with us here today. And if they are here in the room, if they can come to the podium, please, or to the desk there. Jennifer Goodnow, Chair of the Faculty Consultative Committee and Senate Consultative Committee. Stacy Maher, the Chair of the Civil Service Consultative Committee, and Kit Brashears, Chair of the P&A Consultative Committee. I always look forward to these updates from our shared governance partners. We'll start first with Professor Goodnow, if you would like to begin.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, members of the board, and President Cunningham. On behalf of Vice Chair Perry Leo and all of my colleagues in the university and faculty senates, thank you for this opportunity to present the fall semester report. As someone who has been part of shared governance, Senate shared governance for more than a decade, I am still constantly learning new things about the layers and structures of our Senate system. So I'd like to begin with a quick recap of our 5 independent Senates. We have one Senate for each of our constituencies: students, professional and administrative, P&A staff, non-unionized faculty, and civil service staff. Each of these has an executive steering committee referred to as a consultative committee. I'm here today doing double duty as I chair the Senate Consultative Committee, or SCC, because I chair the Faculty Consultative Committee, FCC. My colleagues and fellow presenters, Kit and Stacy, chair the P&A and Civil Service Committees, consultative committees, respectively. I think you know Taiwu Armu, who is the chair of the Student Senate Consultative Committee. Many senators from these 4 senates do double duty as well, serving as members of the University Senate, which is made up of civil service, student, P&A, and faculty senators. However, of note, the other senates do not report to the University Senate. The SCC is made up of members from each of the other consultative committees. Now, you may wonder how our Senate system at the University of Minnesota compares to those of our Big Ten peers. I had the opportunity to learn more about that this past month when I attended the Big Ten Academic Alliance, BTAA, Shared Governance Conference at the University of Maryland. You may remember that we hosted this conference last year. There was a session by attending schools about their structure and composition, And I've done my best to condense about 75 slides into one, so there's a bit of paraphrasing here.
That's good.
First, I tried to capture the people involved in shared governance at these other institutions in the Big Ten, with a focus on their voting members. The 100% on the left side is where shared governance is solely the purview of the faculty, where students and staff are not represented. As we move to the right, all the others have students included, 6 have staff, and 5 have voting administrators. The University of Minnesota has the most staff participation by far at about 20%, while the others that have staff range between 3 and 10%. The underlying groups, Oregon and Rutgers, have unionized faculty as part of their shared governance, and the bolded ones are of larger than 200 voting members in size. There were limits, surprisingly, to how much I could shove onto one slide, so I wasn't able to show that Minnesota has one of the largest and highest quality Senate offices, which was shared by the others. Overall, I can report that the UMN structure is envied by many of my colleagues. Also envied are the long-standing relationships between Senate leaders and the administration. I'd like to take a moment to extend thanks to the board and to the administration for their respect for and willingness to partner with shared governance. At the conference, I casually mentioned meeting with board leadership, and another faculty senate chair looked at me incredulously and said, "You mean your board?" So,
But we're not bored.
that one. I also learned that at least 2 schools have used the Minnesota model of regular monthly meetings between FCC and SCC leadership with senior administrators to advocate for and secure similar meetings on their own campuses. So thank you. I know we're above average in Minnesota, but this was clearly on display at this conference. So now I'd like to turn to 2 sort of multi-year ongoing processes that have consumed a lot of time at our Senates this fall. So institutional speech and unit statement conversations have continued. These discussions started at least back in 2022 with shared governance, and for various reasons, those topics remained on the stove but on the back burner. The events of October 7, 2023 moved this issue to the front burner. After intense consultation in December 2023 to February 2024, we resulted in a resolution passed at the Faculty Senate in which the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee, AF&T, asked to write a report on the issue. As part of the response from the administration, a presidential task force on institutional speech was formed and charged. The report from AF&T, which recommended allowing some unit statements, was foundational to the work of the task force per its charge. And the AF&T report was discussed at the September Faculty Senate meeting. The task force brought a draft of their work to the October University Senate meeting for discussion, and this report and policy also allowed for unit statements with clearly defined restrictions, requirements, and responsibilities. That task force final report and proposed policy was discussed at the December 5th University Senate meeting. So if you're keeping track, that was all of our fall meetings. We had some discussion of this, and the vote was overwhelmingly in favor of the report and policy. The president and her policy team will now carry this work forward. You may remember one other ongoing shared governance initiative, which we began with the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution in early 2023, where all 4 of our constituencies of the University Senate working together sort of got the boulder of Workforce Reinvestment Resolution dislodged and rolling. Over the next year and a half, the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution was subjected to examination and discussion, and an administrative report was issued. That administrative report was examined and discussed. And we're mindful of the engagement I mentioned earlier being implied to this important issue, and we're grateful for that. The momentum has continued with what we see as real progress. We appreciate that a priority of the Board of Regents is to chart a financially sustainable course to invest in retaining and rewarding the university's talented faculty and staff. The words, quote, "The university must invest in its workforce," quote, backed up by what proposed ask of the legislature in the president's recommended fiscal year 2026-2027 biennial budget request that you recently approved, did not go unnoticed by those in shared governance, nor has the creation of a new special committee by the board, University Workforce. The President is now moving the specifics of the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution forward in a Workforce Reinvestment Governance Committee, which has 4 subcommittees addressing and looking at the recommendations of the administrative report and the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution. So that means now the real work begins. We identified a problem, we convinced people that a problem exists, and now we've got to work on solving that problem. There's much work to do if the legislature supports our ask to invest in our employees, and there's still work to be done if they don't. Neither would be easy. The large boulder has been broken into manageable pieces, and it's shared across many groups and committees. We look forward with hope that many hands will make light work of our boulder. We also look forward to seeing how this priority might fit into the strategic vision and plan. In addition to those larger updates on ongoing projects, I have several quicker updates on other fall tasks and our next big things. Throughout the fall, the FCC has consulted with Provost Croson regarding free expression and protests and speech on campus. The FCC and SCC have also done routine but necessary work of reviewing policy changes as part of their comprehensive review. I believe Provost Croson mentioned at the last meeting she was working with shared governance on an AI task force, and as you heard from President Cunningham this morning, that work is in progress and ongoing, and we're excited about that. One of our next big things is already underway. The FCC received a report from the AF&T Task Force on Term Appointments and Academic Freedom, which will intersect with the reports from the Term Faculty and Academic Professional Subcommittees, TFAPs, which is a subcommittee of the Senate Committee on Faculty Affairs, and the expected work of the Workforce Reinvestment Government Committees and their subcommittees. And several of those issues raised overlap with reports, several issues raised in those reports overlap with the workforce reinvestment priorities. There was also a recently formed and charged by Provost Croson Task Force on Administrative Hiring. This task force was first proposed by President Cunningham following the controversy over the rescinding of the offer to Raz Sagal. There are some faculty who remain extremely concerned about threats to academic freedom in the wake of that situation and continue to question the role of the provost in forming that task force. The FCC leadership has consulted with the administration with suggestions on membership and charge. I think this task force has the potential to be above reproach and as such to rebuild trust in our hiring processes by developing a shared understanding of our existing policies. We look forward to watching the work of this task force closely. Finally, I'm excited to report on another big thing. We heard at the December 5th Faculty Senate meeting about the progress on a proposed new core curriculum. This effort has been ongoing since last year with extensive consultation. It's not surprising this work is taking a long time because it probably should. Such changes should be carefully considered, and I think there's some light emerging at the end of the tunnel and some consensus, and we're hoping to vote on this perhaps in March of 2025. This concludes my report from the FCC and SCC. I thank you, Chair Mayron and board members, for your attention. I welcome your questions at the end, and I think now we turn to hear from Kit Brashears, Chair of the P&A Consultative Committee.
Thanks, Jen. All right. Please proceed.
Greetings, Chair Mayron, members of the Board of Regents, and a special hello to President Cunningham. I'm Kit Brashears, the Chair of the Professional and Administrative Senate and the Communications Director for the university's Bakken Center for Spirituality and Healing, an interdisciplinary health sciences unit that focuses on community well-being, human flourishing, and student mental health. I'm here today representing the 7,700 professional and administrative employees across the University of Minnesota system. During this mid-year report, I'd like to remind you who professional and administrative employees are, what we do, who we partner with, where we're showing up, concerns that we're hearing, and what our current and future goals look like. Professional and administrative employees, also called P&As, work in all 20 job families throughout the university system. Our job functions include, but aren't limited to, conducting research, teaching and advising students, directing programs, advising and collaborating with faculty, staff, and students, managing budgets, overseeing departments, and reaching out to citizens in all of Minnesota's 87 counties. P&A employees teach roughly 30% of courses system-wide. More than 22% of scholarly publications at the university had at least one P&A author. And our P&A extension staff help reach more than 1 million Minnesotans each year. A longstanding narrative that we have tried to dispel is that the university has too many administrators. In 1980, P&A employees constituted 6% of university employees. Now, we're at about 25%. This is not bloat. This is a response to mission-critical work that increasingly requires specialized employees with very unique skill sets, be they librarians, attorneys, or even nurse providers. These are people like Javier, who manages a state-of-the-art X-ray scattering lab, and Matt in Morris, who oversees computerized device management for campus, or Susie, an extension educator who supports a team transforming food shelves across Minnesota into places for dignified access to healthy foods. We are, simply put, 7,700 employees who help the university and the entire state of Minnesota flourish. P&A employees who are volunteering for this mission-critical work of governance as part of the P&A Senate are doing important work and partnering with leaders across campus and the system to ensure that the university continues to be a gold standard place of employment and student success. Our P&A Senate, supported by the P&A Consultative Committee, or PAC, is composed of nearly 80 employees that are driven to serve. As a Senate, we meet six times yearly via Zoom, which is the preferred modality for our Senate to remain inclusive and accessible to all our full system of employees. Meeting via Zoom has provided opportunities for employees in Morris, Duluth, Rochester, Crookston, the Twin Cities, and Extension to have equal voice and participation. And in fact, PAC members often come from system campuses, which ensures that we're not having these discussions or making decisions that impact only Twin City employees or students. Through a recent survey to P&A Senate members and alternates, nearly 90% of our responses indicated that meeting via Zoom made the governance experience richer, more equitable, and eliminated barriers to service. Additionally, our Senate members and alternates participate in at least one subcommittee, which include benefits and compensation, communications, outreach, and professional development and enrichment, or serve on one of a number of university-wide committees. I'm pleased to report that through PAC's leadership, all available seats that can be held by P&A employees on university-wide committees are currently occupied, 100%. Additionally, our partners in human resources, most notably VP Ken Horstman, Katie Stucker, and Mary Romancool, have reached out to us to solicit members for several working groups and task forces focusing on deliverables coming out of the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution. These task forces will be covering topics like compensation, benefits, faculty and P&A instructor success, and civil service and P&A administrative staff success. We're working with colleagues like Julie Tonneson, Vice President and Budget Director in Budget and Finance, the university's new Wellbeing Program Representative, Kristen Larson, Paula Merrill, who's the Compensation Director in the U's Office of Human Resources, and leadership around the university system to help P&A employees understand and guide through thought leadership. This all demonstrates that our members care deeply about the university and rise to the occasion and serve with purpose. I'd now like to share just a few concerns that Chair Tony Abst, along with PAC and I, are hearing from our constituents. First, our employees continue to voice concerns about peak. Many are confused about what's happening to their jobs or fear losing their jobs in the name of, I'm going to make air bunnies here, efficiency. Units going through peak are concerned that these efficiencies aren't actually materializing. We keep hearing that communication around peak continues to be a challenge and often seems to provoke more confusion than it has resolved. Next, conversations around market refinement continue to ignite gossip and rumors. The unofficial consensus is that OHR has done a great job at pointing out how much people are underpaid in many roles with respect to the labor market. However, people also seem keenly aware that there seems to be no plan for correcting these discrepancies or to keep salaries in line with inflation. Next, rising concerns continue to frighten P&A employees. On-campus parking, dining, and health insurance, to name just a few, are costing a lot more, while overall employees are unable to, while overall employees' salaries are unable to go as far as they once did. Next, the university initiative to delete email accounts has been a particularly challenging change for adjunct and part-time faculty who are also P&A employees, who may teach one course or in one semester each year and lose access to their critical curriculum and resources. Academic units have been left on their own to develop processes by which course content can be preserved between offerings, which has a huge impact on adjunct expert instructors getting their courses set up successfully and in time for a semester start. Finally, while there are many other concerns, one of the most common that we're hearing is the lack of childcare facilities on all of our campuses. That's been an ongoing concern. Now, I don't like to share concerns without offering a few solutions. Some of the things that are happening on the P&A Senate include our Benefits and Compensation Committee is forming a working group to focus on reclassification with the intent to make recommendations to University Human Resources to create a new policy that all units must adhere to the same process and timeline. Our Professional Development and Enrichment Subcommittee has 5 events planned for this term. Yesterday's policy pop-up on Indigenous research policy, future policy pop-ups on time off and leaves, and the university's retirement account system, and professional development webinars on fostering intergenerational work relationships and achieving digital accessibility. Next, during P&A Senate meetings this year, we've heard presentations from the Budget Office and OHR about market refinement and how budgeting works at the U. This has provided our senators and constituents more information on what's happening and how those decisions impact financial decisions and financial fluidity at the university. This has also brought forth questions and opportunities for our Senate to work with our colleagues on discovering solutions and not just complaining. Our former chair and I have been energized by the opportunities in the last 2 years to come before this body to share our work, as well as before the Minnesota State Legislature in response to the Pell bill last year. And finally, P&A employees continue to work extremely hard in their mission-critical roles amidst these concerns and ambiguities to provide our students, colleagues, leadership, and faculty with excellent support and collaboration. And so as I close, I will repeat that P&A employees are engaged. We're showing up, we're doing hard work, and we are mission-critical. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chair Brashear. Very much appreciate your comments on behalf of the P&A Consultative Committee. Now we will hear from Stacy Maher. Did I say that right?
Close, Maher.
Maher, all right. Chair of the Civil Service Consultative Committee, and also one of the individuals who came to the St. Paul campus, stood in her winter coat the entire time to share concerns and thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, the board, and President Cunningham for inviting civil service to provide this report. Good morning. My name is Stacy Maher, Chair of the Civil Service Consultative Committee and Civil Service Senate. I work as an administrative director in Fisheries, Wildlife, and Conservation Biology, a small but mighty academic department in the College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Sciences. Today, I'm here to report on the current academic year activities of the Civil Service Consultative Committee and Senate. To begin my report, I want to remind our board of who civil service is and how they are important stakeholders at the University of Minnesota. I understand some of you may have heard an adjacent message from our OHR leaders earlier this week in a subcommittee meeting, but it's very important to me and our civil service to reiterate these facts today. Oftentimes, the public connects the work of our institution with our robust faculty leaders, but in doing so overlooks the doers in the room, many of which include civil service employees. Civil service employees make up more than 5,000 public servants at the University of Minnesota. We're integral in delivering the mission of research, education, and outreach. In reflecting about how to speak to the complexities of the University of Minnesota, faculty versus students versus staff, it feels very similar to the chicken or the egg argument. But my lane is civil service. And here's what I know and share about our current state of staff. Without civil service employees, hiring would not happen. Paychecks would not be received. Research data would not be collected, compiled, or analyzed. Classrooms would not be scheduled. Physicians would not be recruited into our accredited training programs or scheduled on rotations at our partnering hospitals and clinic sites. Students, both graduate, undergraduate, and non-degree seeking, could not register for classes. Scholarships would not be processed, and the business of the university as we know it would come to a quick halt. With pride, I remind us today that the university recognizes and includes the civil service employment group within our complex shared governance system, making seats for us in the university senate and on other university committees and shared governance leadership groups. When the day is done, civil service employees have a voice on matters that concern civil service employees. We are governed by a set of rules that this prestigious board approves. Some improvements to our rules are board approved as recent as yesterday. We partner and have worked hard to have seats at the table for matters of importance: campus safety, Senate Consultative Committee, University Senate, Workforce Reinvestment Resolution Committees, Benefits Advisory Committees, and the list goes on. Some civil service employees, many of which sit on these aforementioned committees, are the ones directly delivering the mission, like extension educators who reach the far corners of our great state of Minnesota. Some civil service employees help manage donor relations, execute department strategy, and support curriculum across our majors. Some civil service employees are co-authors on publications, emphasizing the importance of civil service in all corners of education, research, and outreach. I share this with you today to remind you of the importance of this large group of university employees. We deeply value the university and our ability to deliver the mission of the university from flexible work environments. Our faculty colleagues help drive and deliver the mission. Our students, grantors, and the public are our customers. And my civil service colleagues are a mission-critical part of our puzzle. We help make the University of Minnesota a great place to work, learn, and discover. In the docket materials today, I've included a visual representation of the complex diversity civil service employee positions make up within our system. You will also see some outlines and updates of our Civil Service Consultative Committee and subcommittees. 3 months into the academic year, we are continuing the work of last year, focusing our committees on matters top of mind, which includes benefits and compensation. We have advised and discussed matters like the PEAK project, Workforce Reinvestment Resolution, accessibility of IT, and a university environmental policy consultation. Over the remaining months of the academic year, the Civil Service Consultative Committee will shift towards action as we seek to find ways to boost our voice within the university on matters that continue to be of interest to civil service employees. We are appreciative of the consultative process with interdisciplinary leaders, faculty, students, and staff. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to fielding any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. All of your presentations were excellent, educational, and raised important issues for us to consider. Let me see if we have any discussion or comments by any of my colleagues. Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. Thank you for your presentation. My question is in regards to PEAK. And, you know, right from the very beginning, as a region, I was hearing about this and speaking with Vice President Ken Horstman, I would kind of say, you know what, communication is everything. So it sounds like you said, you don't want to just complain without having a solution. One thing that I think helps in communication is to be very specific with your questions. You know, when you're like, because you voice some general guideline, you know, general comments about what people think about PEAK, but I find it's a lot easier if in your little committee and your little work group, you can fine tune exactly what they want to know. Because I don't think either side is reluctant to communicate. But it really helps if you can get some specifics and just instead of just general complaints. Because what do you do with that? That makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And if I may, you know, part of, I believe it was the last Board of Regents meeting, when Vice President Horstman presented a little bit about peak, we, there were, I believe, 11 or 12 concerns that went in, and those actually came through a joint effort of Stacy and I to directly get our constituents to do exactly what you're asking for, and so we'll absolutely continue to do that, and thank you.
All right, Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, Chair Maron. I really appreciated the context, Chair Brashears, to the administrative activities of the university's employees. And that statistic, 6% in 1980, 25% now, is shocking. And it's a very easy soundbite. But there is a lot of detail behind that, and I really appreciate you emphasizing that. We've had conversations over the last few months even about new regulations and new compliance requirements and how each one of those requires additional people, hours, and time to participate in making sure that this university continues to run successfully and in compliance, and staying at least up with, if not ahead of, the changes that we're seeing. From your perspective, what can we do more to help individuals who are making decisions outside of the university that impact the university understand that importance? The phrase you used was, "That's not bloat." Mm-hmm. But how do you think we can help them understand better what that integral kind of structure and support is for purposes of the university operating as a successful institution?
This is a great question, and thank you so much for asking that. So first up, we actually developed on the P&A Senate an infographic that I've shared with some of you, but I'll share again. Please. And the infographic is fabulous because it shares who people are, it shares what they do, and it breaks down job types. So, we have administrators, we have researchers, we have faculty. There are so many different types, and we even have like lots of numbers. I mean, I'm a communicator first and foremost, and I like data, right? And compelling arguments always involve data. We're working really closely on the P&A Senate with government relations and Melissa Lopez-Franson's fantastic team. And, we keep providing data to her about this as well. I think that something that is always really helpful is to do what I tried to do in this report today and put names to people and explain who these people are and what they're doing, right? When we're hearing about how Javier, who manages a state-of-the-art X-ray scattering lab, or Matt, who's managing computer devices, for the entire Morris campus, those are the stories that I think actually really move people, and it helps them understand exactly what it is we're doing, and that we're not just, some gigantic cubicle farm of middle management sitting around pushing buttons on a magic box.
If you find that magic box, please let me know, because I think it would solve a lot of problems. But if you would please share that infographic with Executive Director Steves, he can then get it to the rest of the board, but that would be really appreciated. Thank you very much for personalizing that role at the university in such a really great way.
Absolutely, and I feel like, if I may, President Cunningham is so new, but I feel like I have to give her a great compliment. Early on, President Cunningham reached out to the P&A Senate to offer to show up in one of our orientation sessions, and that made a big deal, right? Like, our senators were really excited that she was there. You ask such fantastic questions. And, right back at you. You asked such fantastic questions. And we were also pleased that, that you were really starting to take a dive that early on into what in the world, people in this P&A job class are doing. That was really meaningful. And, just kind of rolling up your sleeves and saying, hey, I want to work with you. That meant a lot to us, and we continue to cherish that very special relationship and look forward to seeing you sometime in the spring as well.
Thank you. Regent Davenport.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. Thank you for the presentation, and Chair Goodenow, warms my heart and makes me feel proud when I hear how others regard the University of Minnesota's shared governance. So thank you for sharing that. And to put you on the spot again, Chair Brashears. My question is
boy.
for you. And I'm just curious, could you talk a bit, and I imagine it crosses civil service and all the other areas in shared governance, about what you're doing with intergenerational effort? You mentioned in your activities for this coming year something about intergenerational, put you on the spot.
Oh, I need to look at my remarks because I was reading quickly.
I'm wondering, is it working with new employees, with seasoned employees, or some? I'm just curious what that is.
Yeah, I'm not finding in my remarks where I mentioned. Oh, yes, I am. Just kidding.
After
It's right
childcare.
here in front of me. Yeah. So what we're actually doing, our professional development and enrichment subcommittee, we're actually offering a webinar on fostering intergenerational work relationships. And so, you know, what the goal of these kind of events are. They're pop-up webinars. Anybody can attend, by the way. P&A is hosting them. We have lots of folks from civil service, from our faculty, and from our community that attend these as well. They are very well attended. And, you know, these are attended to, to be these kind of pop-up events where we're talking about policy, where we're talking about how to improve diversity within the workspace, which of course includes intergenerational employee hiring, right? Like diversity is so complex, and age is absolutely a critical part of that, across the gamut. And we're a university, we're a place of constant learning, and we're all students.
Thank you.
Sure.
Regent Hipsch.
Thanks, Chair Mayron. Great presentation, everyone. So my question is for all of you, and you come from different colleges, different campuses, and it's a lot of people coming together from a lot of diverse and different backgrounds. And there's got to be some pull about representing my campus versus representing the University of Minnesota. But we all are one university, and we're trying to really push the systemness and try to get things moving back and forth a lot easier. So how does that come into play for you guys and your committees? And as you get together, do you talk about it? Do you talk about the importance of each other and that sort of thing? So,
Chair Mayron, Regent Hipsch, if I may, one of the things I mentioned is how great our Senate office is. And during our Senate orientation in one of our early meetings, they are frequently good at reminding us during that orientation that while we are elected by a piece of our constituency, our Constitution actually requires us to certainly consult with and talk to those who elected us in our constituency, but we are to do the work to advance the University of Minnesota as a whole. Even though I'm on the Morris campus, and my bias is obvious at times. Read your alt text on your mascots if you want to see that. But I do try to remember and put that aside, that I'm called to represent all faculty. I'm not specifically looking at my campus. And what I would also say is having a seat at the table is what I think makes a difference. When there's folks from civil service and P&A and all of our system campuses in the room at the table, I think that elevates the inclusive systemness of it. It doesn't then fall to a P&A member to be like, don't forget about us, or it doesn't. The presence in the room, the representation, I observe as to be what matters. And having the seat at the table makes a big difference in those conversations. But
I'll go if you.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I
Stacey.
can go ahead. Thanks, Chair Mayron, Regent Hipsch. So the way that civil service approaches this, especially as of this year that we have started, is we have a newsletter and a communications committee that reaches all of our civil service employees across the system, and it has a 71% open rate, which I've been told is pretty high. And in that, we've adopted a because you've asked section. So it doesn't matter who is asking the questions, but because people are asking, we will give the answers and supply answers. And that was a new addition this year. And so far, we've sent 2 newsletters out this academic year, and it's been very well received. So when we are in rooms, when we are in subcommittees, it is very important for us to not only represent where we might be coming from, but to collectively make sure everyone is at the table, including our friends at Rochester or Morris, Crookston, Duluth, or the research and outreach centers as well.
I have 2 things that I would add from my perspective. I noted in my report that several PAC members have been employees from system campuses. We've done that really deliberately. You know, when and PAC members are, you know, if you will, the kind of like committee leadership, executive, you know, board of PAC, even though none of us would call ourselves executive board. That's not who we are. You know, we reach out to each campus around the system to try to recruit leadership for that. That's very critical. And again, in addition to all of our system campuses, we also make a very concerted effort to ensure that extension is a key member. Something that I think might be helpful for the board to understand additionally is that Civil Service and P&A Senate have a fabulous relationship. And in each of the Civil Service Senate meetings and the P&A Senate meetings, we actually have report outs. So when the P&A Senate gathers, Stacy's vice chair, Cole, actually comes and presents about what's happening. When their Senate meets, my vice chair, Tony Abst, appears and shares what's happening at the P&A Senate. So we have a lot of relationship building baked in, so that we're not trying to make decisions in a vacuum and really just hearing things in an echo chamber.
Thank you. President Cunningham, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just a few comments. So first of all, thank you so much, both for this report, your very kind words, but also for the partnership over the past months as I've been getting up and going and really learning. Each of your groups has helped me tremendously and learn about the university as I fumble along here and there, trying to sort some different things out. So, and I can't agree more the importance of staff and team. I mean, we can try to help people all day long understand that the university is more than a teacher and a student. It is doing a lot of other things. And we need great people to do those things. And those people have a wide variety of names and titles. And so I'm very much appreciative of that. I want to go back to your comment, and I'd be happy to circle back with you and your folks offline a little bit. There's a lot of good intentions about how we think about meeting potentially in person. And we might have to have a little bit more discussion about the policies and the procedures on how to get there, with the ideas being that, to build relationships and to build governance components. And we'll have to try a few things and see a few things, and I'll look to work together with your groups on how we can do that. And as I mentioned to the Senate last week, how we could think about doing that at different campuses and different places. And I think we should think creatively, and take what we've learned during COVID, but also think about the important relationships we have and how we think about meeting. This body, again, meets in person. Lots of governance bodies meet in person. And so we just have to figure out that process. So, but thank you for the survey and the thoughts. And I look forward to coming back to each of your groups separately in the spring.
I just have one question.
Just a quick question, and then we're going to move on to
it'll
the
be very
next
quick.
topic. Thank you.
I just want a question, that little statistics about 6% and up to 25%.
Correct.
Is there a way to do a little talking point when I'm chatting with legislators as to what the world was like when we only had 6% and what the world is now? For all I know, the 6%, we were still doing Pony Express, et cetera. But but seriously, I need to, and not a big detailed, just like an elevator speech kind of thing to kind of go, it's a different world. And if you really wanted to be ambitious, you would throw in there what kind of things the legislature, et cetera, the government has said, oh, we need to keep track of this, keep track of that. Because what I learned yesterday in that committee was that a lot of our added stuff is because we've been mandated to do that. So those are just points when you get up there at the legislature that I personally would really use.
Sure, I would be happy to prepare something for you and for any board member. Actually, just over coffee this morning, Stacy was talking a little bit about that 6 to 25%. And if I may, I think your elevator speech is pretty great. Would you like to share that real quick?
Very quickly.
Very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Mayron. Regent Turner, part of what we were discussing, Kit and I, this morning was that when P&A was originally created, it's our understanding that job code was created for the anomaly faculty member back in 1980. It was not created as it exists today. So as civil service employees have advanced in their careers, they've been promoted into P&A. So you've seen this shift from civil service numbers being high, shifting to P&A numbers being high. And some of that is an education requirement in the professional and administrative job code of holding at minimum a bachelor's degree. And we're an academic institution, so it's really, education is definitely our business and very important. But when civil service employees advance, many times my constituents are being promoted into the P&A position. So it's not that jobs are being lost, it's that the way they're being classified has changed since 1980.
Thank you very much. I think we could spend the morning talking with the three groups and how important you all are to the success of the university. So thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you.
Our next item is to review and act on the resolution related to legislative policy adjustments, which is included in the docket materials. The proposed adjustments were developed as an outcome of our October 2024 work session and request legislative policy adjustments in the following three areas. First, amending the Minnesota open meeting law to allow the board to close meetings for discussion of potential transactions or contracts where the disclosure of information would put the university at a strategic disadvantage in those negotiations. Those amendments would be similar to those that allow public bodies to close a meeting to consider real estate offers and counteroffers. Second, we're seeking an adjustment that clarifies that the Minnesota open meeting law would permit regents to participate in a meeting virtually as long as the proper notice is given and the public can access a location to view the meeting. And third, establishing a standard date or transition period between the election of regents and those regents taking office. Before I open it up for discussion, is there a motion to approve the resolution related to legislative policy amendments?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the proposed resolution? All right, hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, aye as well. All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. The next item is the ninth item on the agenda. It is the University Performance and Accountability Report, which outlines the ways in which we are delivering our mission. This annual report provides the board with the information needed to fulfill its accountability role and also fulfills a reporting requirement established by the university's charter. The report is before us for review today and will return for action in February. President Cunningham, would you please lead us off in this discussion?
Thank you, Chair Mayron. As a leading public research university, it's important that we be held accountable for fulfilling our fundamental land-grant mission of research, education, and outreach. This is why I'm pleased to introduce this year's university's Performance and Accountability Report, which is the principal annual documentation of how U of M demonstrates its accountability and its progress in meeting mission-related goals. This year's report highlights some of the many ways in which our 5-campus system is pushing the boundaries of research and discovery, transforming teaching, learning, and strengthening community outreach. I will now turn things over to Provost Rachel Croson, who will provide more details about this important report.
Thank you, Provost Croson.
Thank you, President Cunningham, Chair Mayron, and members of the board. I want to add my thanks and an acknowledgement to all of those who have worked this past year to track our impact metrics and to gather the data so that we can present this report. This report reflects metrics, rankings, and other data received over the last month to give you the most up-to-date information as of today's meeting. A special thank to Link Carlson and the Institutional Analysis team, Kelly Voigt and the University Relations team, and senior staff from my office and the Office of the President for all their work to get us here today. But I especially want to thank all whose efforts have generated the underlying outcomes which this report reflects. Their work is a true system-wide collaboration involving all of our senior leaders, their faculty, and their staff on all 5 campuses. As we do each December, we bring today's report for your review only. The final report will come before you for action in February. Between now and then, we will incorporate any corrections noted in our final proofreading, comparison data between the university's campuses and peer institutions, or adjustments driven by today's discussion. I'm not going to discuss each measure across all 5 commitment areas. First of all, there's a lot. And also because much of what we're reporting here has been or will be the subject of more in-depth presentations over the course of the year. But all of the metrics for the system-wide strategic plan are tracked internally by the university and can be made available by request. I will, however, offer a few highlights. I will note that the structure of the report includes a dashboard, which is a smaller set of metrics, the progress card, which is a larger set of metrics, and then the campus overviews, which have not yet been completed with the peer data, but will be complete. So first, a couple of metrics related to our commitment to Minnesota. As you heard yesterday in the presentation from Vice Provost Sneed, and we'll hear in future meetings from our chancellors, strategic enrollment is a priority for the university system. We're pleased to report that system-wide, the university welcomed more than 70,000 students for the first time for the fall 2024 semester. The Twin Cities campus saw its largest enrollment with nearly 57,000 students, including the largest freshman class since 1965. Additionally, enrollment of Minnesota high school graduates reached nearly 50,000 system-wide in fall 2024, the highest enrollment of Minnesota students in more than 40 years, and nearly 3/4 of all of our employed graduates, regardless of where they come from, work for a company or organization located in Minnesota. We like to think that more students are choosing our campuses because of the value propositions that they offer. On the Twin Cities campus, over 53% of students who graduated with a bachelor's degree last year had no outstanding state, federal, institutional, or private debt. Based on the most recent data available, this slide illustrates our affordability for lower income families compared to other four-year institutions in the state of Minnesota. As you can see, we continue making strides to not only offer the best education in Minnesota, but also the most affordable. I won't dwell on this slide for too long, although there's a lot of content here, because Vice President Priya shared much of this in greater detail with you yesterday. I'll simply summarize by repeating something that President Cunningham said in her remarks, that we are a research powerhouse. We are maintaining an outstanding national HERD ranking. We're a trusted partner in research innovation and a leader in technology commercialization. The university has continued to make strides towards its goals of accessibility and inclusion. I'm pleased to report that the UMTC 2024 Student Experience in the Research University, or SERU survey, nearly 90% of students surveyed indicated that they had a favorable sense of belonging on our campus, which was a record high for the university. Additionally, the Office for Digital Accessibility was recently created to provide resources and services in support of ensuring electronic content and services are accessible for all. Inclusion, accessibility, and belonging are all key components in increasing student retention and creating a better likelihood of student success. Part of the university's land grant mission is not just to provide a world-class education, but to also engage in strong community outreach that serves Minnesota and the world. This has included improving and expanding access to health care for all Minnesotans. I'm pleased to report that our overall patient satisfaction scores exceeded 90% for the first time, and that our medical school has maintained its top 10 public university NIH Blue Ridge ranking. As you've seen in the Health Sciences Strategic Plan, all of our health science colleges have been recognized nationally for their excellence. We're also expanding the university's reach as partnerships with extension within the state, but also via international collaborations to address local problems. For example, in this image, Minnesota farmers are piloting an Australian-inspired method to control the spread of weed seeds, offering an alternative strategy to manage resistant weed populations and to reduce the use of herbicides. And coming this fall, we'll be accepting the first students at the Twin Cities Medical School expansion location in St. Cloud, with a focus on rural-based clinical care. While much of the report describes many of the accomplishments we've had over the past year, it also outlines some of the challenges. This slide illustrates the pandemic's impact on our four-year graduation rate at Twin Cities. As you heard yesterday in Mission Fulfillment, the first-year retention for the entering class of 2020, who entered into the pandemic with fully, almost primarily online education, was lower than we had experienced in previous years. Because we retained fewer of the entering class in 2020, we naturally graduated fewer of that entering class in 2024, which is depicted here. 71% of the entering class in 2020 graduated this past spring, lower than previous year's cohorts, which had been around 75%. While we don't yet have peer data for the 2020 cohort, we have seen similar trends in overall graduation rates from our Big Ten public peers. The good news is that since we saw a rise in retention rates in subsequent cohorts, we can project that these four-year graduation rates will steadily rise over the course of the next few years. The same impacts can be seen in our of the pandemic can be seen in our projections for our six-year graduation rates. These rates are currently at an all-time high because they represent the percentage of students who entered in fall 2018 and who graduated in spring 2024. However, we project that the six-year graduation rates will fall in 2026 for the same reason that the four-year graduation rates fell in 2024, low first-year retention of the fall 2020 entering class. Again, our projections suggest a recovery as subsequent classes move through their education. We continue to anticipate similar trends in our Big Ten public peer group, although currently our six-year graduation rates are above average for that group. So Chair Mayron, members of the board, I want to thank you for the chance to discuss some of the key measures in the report. President Cunningham and I welcome your questions and thoughts.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions, discussion, comments by colleagues? Regent Davenport.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. I just would like to reemphasize what you said at the beginning, that this report represents a lot of heavy lifting throughout the university system, and that it's everyone's contribution to the success of the whole. And I think that's something that's understated often. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, we will, actually, I think what we will do is we're going to take a very short 5-minute break, and then we will address strategic planning looking forward. So, meeting is temporarily adjourned or recessed. Recessed, not adjourned. Exactly. All right, I call the meeting back to order. Next, we will discuss the process to create a new university system-wide strategic plan. As you may know, the Impact 2025 system-wide strategic plan will sunset in 2025. President Cunningham is leading the university's development of our new strategic plan. President Cunningham, if you could please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. We've come a long way since I last presented on this topic at the September board meeting, and so I'm very excited to provide you today with some important updates regarding our system-wide strategic planning process. Next slide.
70,000 students getting $20,000 in tuition semester. You cannot fathom the.
Sorry, you're interrupting our meeting. I call the meeting to order.
Listen, we don't want to be a thorn in your side, but it is the only option as you refuse to negotiate with us.
I call the meeting to order.
Turn us away, and our only option is.
At this time, I'm recessing this meeting. Thank you. All right, now you may resume.
I continue to be excited to provide you today with important updates regarding our system-wide strategic planning process. As I've said many times in recent months, and I'll reiterate here today, we need our system-wide strategic plan to be exciting and inspirational, to provide us with a common North Star of who we are and where we want to be years from now. And that is what has led us to maroon, gold, and bold. You will start to see and hear this slogan a lot more as we embark on this exciting journey together. Maroon and gold represents the aspirations of our university system and the tremendous value that our students, faculty, staff, and alumni bring to our state, nation, and world. Bold exemplifies how we will approach our daily work to ensure we accomplish our strategic vision. Next slide. The moment is now. MPAC 2025 laid a strong foundation for the university, and because of it, we were able to achieve some considerable milestones. Record-setting graduation rates, our highest ever national ranking according to U.S. News and World Report, a record number of new startups, and new innovative partnerships with the state. But as you discussed, MPAC 2025 is winding down, and now is the time for us to dream even bigger. Next slide, please. The time has come to set a bold new vision for the university's future, one that pushes boundaries and redefines what's possible for our system of 5 strong campuses. And as we envision what's possible and map out our strategic plan, we are unapologetically proud of our history and primed to boldly define the future. Next slide. Our rich history illustrates an incredible tradition of scholarship, research, and engagement.
and our history will help inform our future achievements. Since our founding in 1851, we've been unwavering in our commitment to Minnesotans while staying true to our responsibilities as one of America's leading public research universities. We are one of the nation's top-ranked public research universities based on our overall research volume, and we take great pride in generating positive and societal impact from feeding the world and protecting biodiversity to educating tomorrow's leaders and curing cancer. Next slide, please. It's important for us to remember that a strategic plan serves many purposes. The process of creating a strategic plan can and will serve as a community engagement exercise, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from the community. The strategic plan will articulate our values and our commitments and should help us improve our optimal operational performance. It can also elevate our reputation as a leading public research university by identifying where we can make strategic investments that position us competitively in the years ahead. Next slide, please. Throughout this journey, we'll be asking members of our community to help us identify what differentiates U of M from the crowded and competitive higher ed landscape. Knowing our differentiators will not only help us tell our story in a more dynamic way, it will help us ensure that our strategy is rooted in our most distinctive characteristics. Next slide. We are inviting everyone, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and Minnesotans broadly to be part of this next bold chapter. It's our shared responsibility to contribute to this process, which will define how we shape the university and state and the world for generations to come. Our process will include comprehensive engagement. Next slide, please. Our year-long efforts to develop a system-wide strategic plan will be led by a team of your colleagues and community members. This month, I've charged a central advisory committee to guide us forward. I'm excited to share that Andrew Aline, Dean of the College of Science and Engineering on the Twin Cities campus, and Charles Nees, Chancellor of the University of Minnesota Duluth, have graciously agreed to co-chair our advisory committee. We have also identified a diverse group of 16 individuals representing many parts of the university system to round out our advisory committee. These individuals will spend the next year gathering and analyzing information and input from across the U of M community and shaping what will be the priorities and strategies that support our university system for many years to come. All members of the advisory committee are now listed online at the, I guess I'm going to read this, president.umn.edu/maroon-gold and bold. I suspect there will be follow-up communication on that so that you can find it clearly. Next slide, please. While the advisory committee will focus on organizing and interpreting input from the community, stakeholders from across U of M will be invited to serve on strategic initiative working groups based on subject matter expertise. As potential priorities are identified by the advisory committee, these more focused working group teams will be asked to dive deeper into specific themes and issues. If you're invited to serve in one of these groups, I really encourage you to participate. Next slide, please. Some of these working group activities will include evaluating benchmark reports that examine where U of M sits within the higher education market, considering barriers to success and strategies for overcoming those barriers, and sourcing new opportunities for improvement and growth. Next slide, please. Our working groups will play an essential role in carrying this process forward, and their voices will be vital to the strategic plan we ultimately develop. But the entire process has been designed to make sure that we hear from everyone. So as our process kicks off, we will broadly distribute surveys and organize listening sessions, focus groups, and town halls. The advisory committee will leverage U of M data as well as community insights to help us share our understanding of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We will leverage even more surveys, interviews, and a new technology called voice sessions to then get broad feedback on the drafted goals. Our working groups will help us leverage content, expertise, and a broader array of voices in the process. While all faculty, staff, and students and alumni will have an opportunity to provide feedback on the drafted goals, we will also engage in a random and representative sample of 500 members of the university community as thought partners in virtual voice sessions to ensure we are crafting goals that U of M can actually deliver on. A voice session is a virtual, anonymous, facilitated conversation using a set of quantitative and qualitative questions. I want to reaffirm the critical role listening plays in this process because I believe a good process must include comprehensive engagement. Next slide, please. To give you a better sense of our timing, system-wide strategic planning will be organized into 4 phases. Phase 1 kicks off this month and will focus on setting the charge. During this phase, we will bring the advisory committee together, organize launch events, develop system-wide surveys, and begin our leadership listening tour. Phase 2 will focus on a landscape analysis where we will collect and analyze broad data, set a vision, and draft strategic imperatives. Phase 3 will focus on refining those strategic imperatives, and then next fall, we will once again engage with the broader U of M community as part of a Phase 4 to finalize our system-wide strategic plan. Next slide, please. I'll be asking all members of the university community to roll up their sleeves and engage in this exciting journey. We must foster an environment where our people, the university's greatest asset, you could hear from our the leaders who came before us before, our people are indeed our greatest asset, are empowered and motivated to participate. So it's incumbent upon every leader and manager across the Crookston, Duluth, Morris, Rochester, St. Paul, and Minneapolis campuses, and many of our other locations and extension across the state, to inspire their teams to be ready to think big and help us create something previously unimagined together. We all have work to do to dream and vision the next future of U of M. Next slide, please. Our tradition of excellence will propel us into a transformative future. Together, we will achieve the unimaginable loudly and broadcast our excellence and create a future that reflects the very best of who we are and who we can become. I'd encourage you to learn more about our system-wide strategic process by visiting the website that I will not now repeat, but is listed here. So thank you again for your time and attention. And that concludes my presentation, Chair Mayer, and I'm happy to take questions from the board.
Thank you very much for this overview. Colleagues, will now open it up for any questions or comments of President Cunningham. Yes, Regent Talrabi.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, and thank you, President Cunningham, for talking through that ambitious plan. It's very exciting, and I think it's a welcoming and invitation for all of our constituents and to be able to participate. I just have a question just thinking about international students, and I know that it's an area that we've talked about, and I wonder how we might be gathering input from kind of that population, or how we want to be thinking about that. I didn't quite kind of hear about that. So any thoughts?
So all of our students, well, our international students, our domestic students, our in-state students, our out-of-state students, our grad students, our undergraduate students, and all the other students I haven't yet mentioned, will be able to participate. There will be surveys that will be sent to the community broadly to participate. There will also be focus groups individually. So there will be an opportunity for all of our students to provide their input into the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments of President Cunningham? All right. Hearing none, seeing none, thank you very much. We're, needless to say, very excited.
We are very excited.
We are very excited. Yep, maroon, gold, and bold. All right. Our next agenda item, the 11th item, is the 2025 Minnesota Legislative Session update. And with us today is Executive Director of Government and Community Relations, Melissa Lopez-Franzen. Executive Director Lopez-Franzen, if you would like to start.
Thank you, Chair Mayron and Regents and President Cunningham. I'm Executive Director of Government and Community Relations, Melissa Lopez-Franzen. I'm pleased to be here today to share an update surrounding our efforts for the 2025 legislative session in Minnesota. During this presentation, we'll be updating you on the election outcome in Minnesota, our legislative strategy on behalf of the University of Minnesota for the upcoming session, and our review of our state relations team as it's changed in the last year. Let me start by saying this was an unprecedented election for the Minnesota legislature. It's an understatement. We have an equally divided House of Representatives where it's 67-67 split. That leaves no room for anything other than compromise to get things through the committee process. Committees will have co-chairs and staff representing each party, and the process is expected to function much like a conference committee where the gavel may be swapped each day of committee from the beginning of the legislative session to the end. In the Minnesota Senate, the Democrats continue to hold a one-seat majority, 34-33, as the special election in one district did not change the party composition, and no changes were made in that committee structure of that body. Additionally, the November economic forecast for the state projects a dim picture of a $616 million balance at the end of fiscal year 26-27 and a structural imbalance in the out years of 28-29 of a structural deficit of $5 billion. Under these circumstances, I cannot understand the value of our engagement at the Capitol. Our advocacy to share the urgency of our requests, even in the midst of a dim fiscal outlook, will be more important than ever before. Our job this year is to relate to the legislature and the executive branch that the university is at an inflection point in need of critical investments and partnership from the state. This will take ongoing engagement, building relationships to lift up our stories. Here are some photos showcasing the various levels of engagement throughout the last legislative session and the interim period. Our work is ongoing, where we welcomed legislators to campus for personalized visits, offering tours of facilities like our hospital and the Center for Genomics Engineering and the Community University Healthcare Center, which demonstrates our work and impact firsthand. Additionally, we've traveled to legislative districts all over the state for coffee and conversation to build relationships with them in their communities with our legislators. From Duluth, Crookston, Morris, Rochester, and everywhere in between, our team has hit the road to meet legislators where they're at. In addition, this fall, we've invited more than 25 legislators to join us on our campus to experience the spirit of campus life and the excitement of Gopher football games. We have also invited legislative staff to spend days on campus. So far, Twin Cities and Duluth to showcase the university and educate staff on topics such as financial aid, student life, and our budget, to name a few. I want to thank everyone involved in those efforts, including our team who's prepped for them and even drove them to different parts of our campus system. These varied approaches to engagement are essential in building lasting connections and fostering understanding and support for our institution. Now to the 2025 legislative session timeline. Each legislative session brings new goals and objectives shaped by the majority's priorities, often with few surprises along the way. As I mentioned, our biggest surprise was the election day with a tie in the House of 67-67. However, there are a few things we can count on, like the timeline. One is the February economic forecast, which will basically update the November forecast, and that's what informs the state's budget targets and also informs the governor's budget recommendations. We also have the committee deadlines, which will be set early in the session, and the constitutionally mandated date of adjournment is May 19th. I will highlight February 18th is University of Minnesota Day at the Capitol, where we have had your participation in the past, and we welcome everyone to be there with us this year as well. The groundwork we lay before each session along our consistent presence throughout is critical. This proactive approach is essential not only to engage with newly elected legislators, but also to connect with members who may be new to key committees such as higher education, capital investment, and other vital areas for the university. Building these relationships early ensures that our institutional priorities are well represented and understood throughout the legislative process. Our work cannot happen in isolation. We need the active engagement of our entire university community. Students, staff, faculty across the system must be activated to amplify our impact. That's why we collaborate with stakeholders who are directly affected by our work every day, from businesses who hire our graduates to family farms supported by our food research to pharmacists, veterinarians, and dentists serving rural communities. It's the statewide reach that we must remind legislators about and continue to promote. Extension is University of Minnesota. Sustainable energy is the University of Minnesota. Healthy Minnesota is the UMN. Together, we are a force for positive change across Minnesota. We need to also continue to remind and promote the university's impact to the state by leveraging our greatest advocates, our students, who come from hometowns all over the state, our faculty and staff who live and work in legislators' district. It's about collaborating internally and externally with partners like the UMMA, which is our Alumni Association, to ensure that 62% of alumni that live across communities in Minnesota feel empowered to share their stories about how the university has transformed their lives. Additionally, it's the grateful patients who have experienced the life-saving research and care we deliver, whether in our Minneapolis facilities or throughout health professionals trained here all over, and that are embedded all over the state. This continuous connection with the larger community keeps our institution strong and relevant, lifted by those who believe in our mission. We also invite you to help promote our UMN Advocates program as we grow a broad base of grassroots supporters. This is an opt-in program allowing us to directly communicate with our strongest advocates who sign up to receive our legislative alerts and are activated to reach out to their legislators when we need them the most. You can find more information on our website and sign up or email advocates@umn.edu. And of course, our regents, all of you. You are essential for us to actively engage with elected officials. You are the face of the institution and play a pivotal role in building understanding and trust. By showing up and having direct conversations, you demonstrate a personal commitment to the institution's mission, its impact to the community, and the resources needed to sustain and expand its work. These interactions allow you to directly convey the value of the university's contributions from education to research to public service, while fostering relationships that can influence policy decisions and secure funding. When you take time to connect, and I know it takes time, with lawmakers, you not only advocate for this institution's needs, but it also creates a shared vision for the university that serves the state, ensuring that decision makers recognize and support its strategic goals. Again, I want to highlight the election outcome. I don't want to understate that it is a complex environment out there where we are working this year. And I want to highlight a couple key points from the November election, because this even split outcome in the House of Representatives has only happened once in our history, back in 1979. Leaders in the Minnesota House of Representatives are working on a power-sharing agreement to manage the even split between the 67 Republicans and 67 Democrats. Each committee will have co-chairs and an even number of members. And their state relations team is tracking how the gavel will be held on a daily basis and impacts for the University of Minnesota. Similar to last year, the Minnesota Senate retains a one-seat majority with Democrats in control. We are already actively engaged with the Walz administration and their executive budget team to position the university for inclusion in the governor's proposed biennial budget. In fact, the meeting with the governor, President Cunningham, and commissioners of Minnesota Management and Budget and Office of Higher Education and our respective university leaders happened this past Wednesday. I also want to mention that this past election cycle, a constitutional amendment was on the ballot to extend lottery proceeds to the Environment and Natural Resource Trust Fund. The ballot measure is important and passed with 77% of Minnesotans voting yes. It's the single largest recipient of the ENRTF funding is the University of Minnesota. Since its inception, the university has received 445 grants totaling nearly $230 million. And here is our small and mighty state relations team. And speaking of the face of the institution, this is who you'll see if you walk the halls of the legislature, with a few additional help with people like Zach next to me and folks that are in the federal team, because all of the work is interrelated, from the local community relations with Tina Erasmus to all the way to the federal level with Brian Paro. We are instrumental in advancing the goals of the university and the institution by building those strategic connections with policymakers, advocating for funding and policy priorities, and effectively communicating the institution's impact. I also want to give credit for the team with Vice President Gotti and Chuck and Andrea and others who worked, and Jake, on our strategic talking points for this session. And those one-pagers, you probably already have them in your inbox, and we will go with you and showcasing how we're going to talk about our ask this legislative session. Our team's role consists of navigating complex legislative processes. Like I mentioned, this one is going to be an interesting one. Educating lawmakers about the institution's research, academic achievements, and community contributions, and aligning these efforts with the broader governmental priorities. We work to ensure that legislators understand how the institution's cutting-edge research drives innovation, supports economic development, and enhances the well-being of citizens. By fostering relationships and building coalitions with stakeholders, we help secure critical resources, advancing favorable policies, and position the institution as a trusted advisor on matters of science, technology, healthcare, education, and reinforcing its standing as a leading research university that promotes a healthy Minnesota and the world. You will see our faces a lot at the Capitol this year. And beyond our immediate team, we consistently collaborate with colleagues throughout our system campuses, including Lynn Williams at Duluth, Chris Windham at Crookston, Sue Dieter at Morris, and Lindsay Hemker at Rochester. And additionally, we coordinate our work with 2 faculty liaisons, legislative liaisons, Professors Mark Beat and Robert Blair. We thank them in advance for their help and efforts. Finally, I would like to end with sharing that our connections are not only internally, but also extend from external grateful patients to business groups to key external stakeholders. We have taken our president to Farm Fest early, just a few weeks in her tenure, and we also support her appearance in trade association events, like whether it's AgriGrowth or business associations like the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. With that, I'd like to look forward to your questions and comments, and I look forward to working with you this legislative session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Director Lopez Franzen. The work of your group and your team is phenomenal. You've certainly got your work cut out for you this year, no different than any other year. But we are so appreciative of your guidance and direction and hopefully success over at the legislature, both state and federal. So let's turn to discussion. Any comments or questions by colleagues? Yes, Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. I believe you guys were pretty good about this last year, but how are you going to give a little text to us as to when you need us up there, like because everything changes on a daily basis? Or do I just drive up there every day and see what's going on? Because I do that too, but refresh my memory on what's our system of letting us know when things are going on and when we strategically, it would be great for us to be in the audience.
Thank you, Chair Mayron and Regent Turner. As we worked last year, we are typically there every day, especially when there's committee hearings. When you're planning to go to the Capitol, if you give us a heads up, we'll be able to brief you and the landscape, because it changes every day in terms of the conversations we're having with legislators or the meetings along the hall. We'd love to schedule meetings that we can staff, and a lot of parts of the university are working with us closely to schedule those meetings. Just to give you an example, this last year, I think we did over 300 meetings that our team supported, and then over 200 events. So we are everywhere. We just need to know where you need us, and we definitely want to support your efforts and making sure that we advocate with the same story in terms of how we're advocating for the Board of Regents priorities and the budget requests that you all approved. So that is our focus. There's certainly other areas that we support, because legislators also have ideas of how they want to support the university. So we like to educate them of the priorities that we've set as a university, but also want to make sure that we align how they see they should be supporting us. So it's a fluid, it's a conversation, and it's definitely, all of you should have my phone number, but we are always at the Capitol. And sometimes I know meetings happen organically in your districts. If you need some information from us in terms of how discussions are happening with your legislators in your districts or others that you hear, it really helps us really have a broader understanding of what the legislature is thinking. And certainly when you hear concerns, we like to address them right away.
Follow up, do you want to know if we've ran into legislators and also?
Chair Mayron and Regent Turner, it's helpful when you have a conversation that that informs our strategic approach legislatively. So that does help. So a lot of people hear rumors, and sometimes they're real and they're not, or based on fact. And we just want to make sure that we are able to follow up if they have any questions, that we can do it as with our team, and we'll find the answer with our different tentacles around the university.
Thank you. Thanks for the question and the response. Executive Director Steves, you had something you wanted to add in this regard.
Madam Chair, I would just add that the board office works closely with the government relations team as well, and will certainly alert Regents anytime a university senior leader is scheduled to appear before a committee. And in some cases, when, for instance, when the president is presenting, we encourage Regents to be there to support those presentations. And so we will keep you informed all throughout session of those types of things. And it doesn't maybe cover the organic kinds of things, but in terms of all the formal structured meetings and events, we'll make sure that we get you the information.
Thank you. A quick question for you that I had is, looking now at how the Senate and the House of Representatives are constituted, any idea or a range of how many are new to their office, meaning you have experience with those who have been around for one or more session, but how many new legislators have come on board that you're really going to have to work hard, or maybe harder, to educate about the university and its impact and importance to the state?
I believe it's about 20, but I'll call a friend.
Okay, just to get an
22.
idea.
I was close. So those are perhaps new members. They might be newly elected to a role, or they might have served in local government or other areas, so they might not be completely foreign to the process. But I'll tell you, as someone who served on higher education, we have to continue to educate people, and it's a lot to learn. This is a huge institution with a lot of different aspects of it, so we have our work cut out for ourselves. I will say also that when Regents show up, it makes a difference. A lot of you showed up in committees when we were presenting or we were having discussions about higher education. Having you in the room really makes a difference. I will also mention that this year we have Regent selection as well. Our department is not involved in the Regent selection process, but we certainly will be there and show, and we know that's another element that's going to be at play in this legislative session. There's going to be people lobbying and advocating to be part of the Regent body. So that's another interesting fact, which I think would help us in terms of elevating our presence at the Capitol. People are going to be talking about us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Good point. Regent Ruth Johnson.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're going to mention something related to that. We had a brief conversation about the fact that we'll be electing 4 new regents to the board this spring, hopefully. And I found out recently my neighbor, Tina Liebling, a Democrat, will be one of the chairs of that committee. And we know, I think, who the other one is as well. But very important for the university and for all of us. And I think being active in that would be helpful. And so we appreciate any guidance from you on how we can best do that.
Thank you, Chair Marion and Regent Johnson. We will have some time with individually with Regents, just go through the legislative request in more detail of how we're going to talk about it, and we can also discuss some strategies. A lot of us have relationships with legislators. There has been a shift of who was the chair in one committee in the House. Now it's not the same chair, so we'll have to adjust. The good thing is that our team has been really active with all members of the legislature, inviting them to campus equally, and I think we have good standing relationships with all members. It's a matter of the new ones, at how we get to speed up the process of get them to understand the university and gain their support.
Thank you. Regent Hipsch.
Thank you, Chair Mayor. Thank you for your great report. Yeah, it's going to be a challenging session, I'm guessing, with the different things that you brought up. So one of the things I think that can really help with that is our alumni. We have, whatever it is, 620,000 alumni system-wide, and 70% or 80%, whatever, live in the state. And so do you have plans to utilize the alumni?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Marion and Regent Hibsch. our team has been supporting some of the efforts already ongoing. So there's been meetings that are alumni events with legislators in different areas. Just this last weekend, there was one in Brooklyn Park. This weekend, there's one in Duluth. So someone in our team will be there and definitely trying to cover all bases to make sure that those relationships are happening from the alumni side, but that we're also joining forces to pitch our strategy in terms of what we're going to be talking about in the legislative session of the Regent request. So we are playing in the same sandbox really well, and we look forward to doing much more together, activating our alumni base, because it's a loud voice. If we can all have them singing the praises that we need the legislature to hear about the University of Minnesota, it's just going to make our job a lot easier. So absolutely yes. So thank you to Lisa Lewis and her team, and Sam Rosemark, who've been really great partners.
Thank you. All right, just a quick follow-up, and then Regent Turner, and then we will move on to our next topic. Oh, you're just making
going yay to-
Oh, all right, got it.
When
Sorry.
you get to these alumni meetings, if you want regents at any of them, you need to let Brian and the staff know, and we'll try to make it to those as well, because I think those are also important ways to engage alumni, so to help you and your cause.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
May the force be with you and your team. All right, that brings us now to our committee business. Let's begin first with our litigation review committee.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. The Litigation Review Committee met on December 2nd, 2024. At this meeting, the committee adopted a resolution that authorized the closing of the meeting to discuss matters subject to the attorney-client privilege. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we will hear the report of audit and compliance. Regent Kenyanya, are you there? There you are. If you could share your report with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, the echo cut me off. I'm hearing myself. I'm gonna ignore it. First, the committee discussed the results of the external quality assurance review of the university's internal audit function. QAR was completed this past October and occurs every 5 years. The review found that our internal audit function received the highest assessment rating in conformance with the Institute of Internal Audit Standards. I'm sure everyone joins me in congratulating the entire Office of Internal Audit team, Chief Auditor Galswick, and the team for the outstanding report. There were recommendations that were noted that the committee will continue to think about, particularly how audit relates to the administration and other functions that the audit committee can play, particularly with our risk management and compliance areas. Next, our Controller Viola and the university's appointed independent external auditor, Clifton Larson Allen, provided the committee with the external auditor report and the results of FY 2024 financial statement audit. I'm pleased to report that the audit had no material findings, and it was a good audit, especially for our first year with Clifton Larson Allen. They spoke very highly of working with our administration. For our third item, the committee discussed the annual institutional compliance report and the institutional conflict of interest report presented by Interim Chief Compliance Officer John Gooden. This gave us a valuable look into the work being done to monitor and enhance the university's culture of compliance, in addition to important information related to conflict of interest matters. Finally, the committee heard information item from Chief Auditor Galswick, who reported 3 engagements of less than $100,000 requiring after the fact reporting to the committee. Thank you, Madam Chair. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Regent Kenyanya. The next report comes from Governance and Policy Committee, Regent Verheulen.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. The Governance and Policy Committee acted on one item this month. The committee voted unanimously to recommend adoption of the proposed amendments to the Board of Regents policy, board operations, and agenda guidelines. These amendments are the result of previous discussions by the board and the Governance and Policy Committee. They include the elevation of the Special Committee on Academic Health to a standing committee. They codify the Finance and Operations and Mission Fulfillment Committees as committees of all 12 regents. They provide additional detail on the role of standing committees versus special committees, and then other minor changes were included to align with current practice or for readability and clarity. Amendments were also added at the request of the Audit and Compliance Committee. Those changes include eliminating the dollar threshold for approval requirements for other audit and non-audit engagements with the appointed independent external auditor, but keep the board approval requirement for engagements that may impair independence. The changes also eliminate both the dollar threshold and the impairment threshold for engagements with other external auditors. Any engagements with those auditors will be reported to the committee. If you understood all of that, you are deep in policy like the rest of us. I'll note that any changes to this policy that might be needed related to recommendations from the recently completed external quality assurance review of the Office of Internal Audit, or as required based on recent changes to the Institute of Internal Auditor standards, will be made once the Audit and Compliance Committee takes up and considers those recommendations. Chair Mayron, I move adoption of these proposed amendments by the board.
All right. Do I require a second or?
You do not.
I do not. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Regent Verhalen, any additional committee business?
Thank you, Chair Mayron. In addition, the committee reviewed amendments to the Board of Regents Policy Code of Conduct for members of the Board of Regents, which are the result of comprehensive review of the policy and discussions from the summer and fall. The proposed amendments clarify definition language and move selected definitions into the sections where they are applied. New language that I want to bring to the board's attention would add parameters around when regents can use university marks, the title of regent, and official letterhead, including when writing letters of recommendation. The committee appeared supportive of limiting the use of those items by regents, except for when the regent was speaking on university matters that reflect an affirmative position of the board. No action was taken at this time, and they were reviewed and discussed at this meeting. Finally, the committee reviewed amendments to the board's bylaws. The proposed amendments include several clarifying changes or edits to align with current practice. I'll highlight two of those areas. The first would create the ability of the board to elect up to 2 vice chairs if it's so desired. The second provided 2 potential options that adjust the current process for how requests to appear for the board are handled. From this discussion, it appears that the first option in those board materials is preferred by the committee, which would expand the current process for the chair to review and rule on requests, but would include consultation with the vice chair or chairs, the president, and would be guided by new criteria. For both of those items, I encourage regents who are not on the committee to review the full list of amendments included in the docket. If you have feedback on the proposed changes, please reach out to me, Vice Chair Mayron, or the board office. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we will receive the reports of the Mission Fulfillment and Finance and Operations Committees. These reports will note those items that the committees approved on behalf of the board. We will start with the Finance and Operations Committee. Regent Hipsch, your report, please.
Thanks, Chair Mayron. The Finance and Operations Committee unanimously approved one item on behalf of the board. This item was the consent reports, which included amendments to civil service rules, amendments to retirement plans, 2 capital budget amendments, 1 purchase of goods and services, $5 million and over, and 1 real estate transaction. There were no other action items approved this month. Thank you, Chair Mayron. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Hipsch. For the Mission Fulfillment Committee, Regent Ruth Johnson, if you could provide your report, please.
The Mission Fulfillment Committee unanimously approved one item on behalf of the board this month. That item was the consent report, which includes academic program changes, conferral of tenure, the human fetal tissue report to the state of Minnesota, and conferral of emeritus title. There were no other action items approved this month. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Now turning to the Special Committee on Academic Health, Regent Wheeler, if you could share your report, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair Mayron. The report includes 3 action items this month. All were unanimously recommended by the committee for approval by the board. First, the Special Committee recommended the approval of the resolution related to the University of Minnesota Physicians Governance changes, as was referenced by President Cunningham in her report. The resolution directs the president and the administration in consultation with the medical school to work with UMP, University of Minnesota physicians, to create a new university integrated governance structure for UMP as well as an implementation plan. And once those are developed, they will return to the Board of Regents for the UMP and the UMP Board of Directors for final approval. The current structure, which separates group practice, is really an outlier among our peers. Moving towards a more integrated structure will create a more effective model and position us well for our clinical future as a platform to more effectively align the medical school faculty practice, currently UMP, and the clinics and surgery center, and if acquired, the University of Minnesota Medical Center. The proposed structure will make the university the sole member of what will become the University of Minnesota Health, create a board to oversee the integrated structure chaired by the university's new interim executive vice president for health affairs, have a faculty advisory council, and ensure that the Board of Regents has appropriate reserved authorities. I'll note that the work of the university's administration's medical school leadership, UMP leadership, and the support of our medical school faculty will be critical to the success of this new structure. Secondly, the special committee recommended approval of the health sciences strategic plan. Creation of the plan was a key priority of the charge of the governor's task force on academic health. The proposed plans aim to address the critical healthcare challenges facing Minnesota by enhancing access, training the next generation of Minnesota's health professionals, reducing inequities, improving care qualities, and driving innovation. We were all impressed by the broad stakeholder involvement and the dedication to this work, creating a really robust strategic plan. That was the second action item that was unanimously approved. Finally, the special committee recommended the approval of the consent report. That included 2 new reports to the state of Minnesota, which showed the use of appropriation funds for the benefits of health sciences and an evidence in support of the appropriation.
And that concludes your report? Or no?
That it says pause. Chair Mayron will ask if any regents are wishing to separate out an item.
All right, I now know where I am. All right. Thank you, Regent Wheeler. Before Regent Wheeler makes a motion to approve the special committee report, you are welcome to ask questions, make comments, or ask for an item to be separated out from the report to be voted on separately. Are there any questions, comments, or requests to separate an item out? All right, hearing none, Regent Wheeler, would you like to make your motion?
Yes, I would, Chair Mayron. Thank you. Chair Mayron, I move approval of these items.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Regent Wheeler, any additional committee business?
Chair Mayron, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Regent Wheeler. Next, for the Special Committee on Student Affairs, Regent Kenyanya, would you share your report on this matter?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The special committee did not consider any action items for our inaugural meeting. We reviewed the committee charge as well as the committee work plan. For those not on the committee, if you have not done so already, please review the work plan as we will dive into key topics throughout the year. Our second item, we walked through the evolution of student affairs to learn how student affairs has evolved over time as student needs have evolved. Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs on the Crookston campus, Dale Scully, and Senior Associate Vice President for Student Affairs on the Twin Cities campus, Maggie Towell, led the discussion, which described the changes in student mental health needs, food insecurity on our campuses, and partnerships with local community partners, among other key areas. Next, Associate Professor in the Center for Learning and Innovation on the Rochester campus, Robert Dunbar, and Associate Vice Provost and Executive Director of Boynton Health on the Twin Cities campus, Colleen McDonald, shared an overview of support for student mental health, and we learned how units across the system are actively supporting student mental health. Special committee heard how critical this work is and how it will continue to happen and evolve, even though as the university transitions from PRISM, but continues to do this important work. For our final item, the special committee received a report on the university's biennial budget request with Assistant Vice Provost McDonald, Associate Vice Provost for Student Success Leanne Moline, and Twin Cities Executive Director of Career Services Administration Sarah Newberg. They highlighted how the funds allocated for student affairs are enhancing the student experience and underscored the ongoing importance of how legislative funding is essential for enacting the many services provided by student affairs. Thank you, Chair Mayron. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Kenyanya. Finally, the Special Committee on the University Workforce, Regent Tad Johnson, if you could share your report.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. The Special Committee on University Workforce did not consider any action items this month. The Special Committee's first meeting started with a summary of our charge and a discussion of our work plan for the year. I would encourage the board to take a look at the topics we'll be taking up, and please feel free to provide feedback on those matters to myself or Chair Gully. Next, we heard an overview of the university workforce. The presentation by Associate Vice Provost Oli Graham and Senior Director of Employee and Labor Relations Mani Vang highlighted the major employee groups, clarified the work each group performs, and underscored how each advances the university's mission. This discussion provided us with a valuable foundation and prepared us for future topics. We also considered the potential challenges facing the university's workforce. For our third item, Vice Provost and Faculty for Faculty and Academic Affairs Beth Lewis and Senior Director of Total Rewards Mary Roman Kuhl led our discussion of the university's efforts to invest in its employees system-wide, highlighting the current initiatives, costs, and future opportunities. Both presentations generated robust discussion in which committee members provided feedback on additional ways to invest in our workforce, including expanding tuition benefits for employees and dependents, cost of living adjustments versus merit increases, employee engagement and development, and other items such as paid time off, medical benefits. Several of these topics will be included in future agenda items on our work plan, and we look forward to more in-depth discussion. Finally, the special committee received an informational item that provided a summary of the university's labor represented employee groups, their respective unions, and the current status of their collective bargaining agreements and their contract effective dates. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Regent Johnson. Thank you, everyone, for all of your reports. I am really pleased to see the work of the new special committees and how they've both really gotten into the guts of what we care so much about and was the reason for the formation of those committees and showing our commitment to those topics. So thank you to those special committees. That concludes our committee reports and brings us to old business. Is there any old business to come before the board? Hearing none, is there any new business? Hearing none, that concludes our meeting. We are now adjourned.
All right.